Okay, greeting. Welcome to Black Creators on the Rise. My name is Dr. Kim D. Harris, and we're here this evening with Richard J. Watson, iconic artist of extraordinaire of everything artsy. How you doing tonight, Richard?
Oh, Kim, I'm so glad and blessed to be on this telecast with us because with things going on and we're trying to celebrate the end of a year and the beginning of a new season and we're up against a lot of challenges, but we're also up against a lot of beautiful opportunities to share our lives with our brothers and sisters around the country and around the world. So here we are. We can get it on and have a great time to end up this year with something positive and something strong and something inspiring for people to hear and see.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm just here pulling up my notes because I've been working on some questions for you. And I really, really appreciate your taking time to join me this evening. So, without further ado, I would just go ahead and get right into it. I wanted to ask you a few things with regards to your background.
Mhm.
Um, I personally know you from Philly, from Philadelphia, from the African American Museum, Seventh and Arch. That was my old stomping grounds, and I have to say, a place that gave me my beginnings as a storyteller and as an artist. So, but where's your background from? Like, where were you born?
Well, I come from a storytelling county in North Carolina. As we talked about earlier this year, I was born in the South, North Carolina, and I was raised by my grandparents, my father's mother and father. And my beginnings were very kind of rocky, kind of shaky and unstable because my mother died when I was 3.5 years old, and so the
Okay.
grandparents took on, raising us. And living in a place where we didn't have a lot of people to play with, my brother and I, we entertained ourselves a lot, but we also were very well trained by what you say, older people who were not necessarily set in their ways, but they were ready to retire when they took us on.
Wow. Okay, I can imagine. Well, let me ask you: is your work informed by certain concepts or themes from your childhood, your background, like or where you lived or where you were raised?
It's a combination of my life. My life began as a ball rolling down a hill like a snowball, and it picked up as it went along. But it wasn't a it wasn't a declining journey. It was a consuming journey. So
Wow.
everything that I experienced stuck to me in terms of being part of my toolkit, and it prepared me for who I am today because I never look back with regret or look back with sorrow. Even at the death of my mother, I never saw tragedy. I never saw things as a loss, but I treasured the memory. And so from that point on, I was always an inquisitive person about the meanings of things,
Hmm.
the meanings of life, the meanings of salvation, religion, and the redemption, and all. You can imagine living with older people, going to church all the time. It gave us a foundation for principles and for values in life, for the hard work ethic. So, and I didn't see it as hard work. I didn't see anything in my life as an unsurmountable challenge. And
Wow.
that's a gift that God gave me. He took my mother, but He gave me wisdom of the elderly and insight and imagination to go beyond my borders of my physical confinement. So my work has been an evolution of consuming things, digesting them, and putting them back out again.
Wow, that's
So
beautiful.
that is my basis for living and for working in my capacity as an artist, as a writer, as a performer, as a designer, as a innovator, as a facilitator, agitator. All
I love
those
that. I love that.
things began with my beginnings. There are people calling trying to know how to get onto this Zoom thing. I'm gonna take this call off so I'll catch up to them later.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, the link is in the bio, and we're gonna. mastered this whole digital world of how we have to communicate with each other now. So, you know, they will soon get a chance to see everything full on the YouTube channel.
I'm gonna promise everybody I'll make it up to them because I'll be getting 85 calls tonight or tomorrow, but I'll
Okay.
make it worth their while because for those of you who are tuned in right now, there's so much more that could be said, and it would take a whole afternoon for us to really get a full overview of everything that I'd like to talk to you about because I get wound up, and when I do get into this rhythm. A lot of these things I hate to miss out on sharing with you, but I think we'll have a good time today because there are a lot of things that we can talk about, and I'm always fully open. I have no kinds of things that I hold back in terms of even knowing what Kim's going to ask me. So, as an advisor, an instructor, a person who likes to share, I'm full of it. And I don't mean that in a but I have a lot to say to you, and I love being able to share this kind of time with us.
Nice, awesome. Thanks for responding to the question. Okay, with saying that, with what you said with regards to concepts and themes from your childhood impacting your work, um, like how does that impact how you even see the world today with regards to creating even past work or new bodies of work? Have you felt a shift in how that has impacted your work?
It has always impacted my work because, like I say, it's a continuum of finding your way through things and sorting out things and opening unknown territories and being able to do it fearlessly because I rambled through the woods and I went through hills and valleys, picking up pieces of things I know nothing about. It's almost like sticking your head in a jar and not being able to get it out, because I always found a way to wonder. There's a wonderment about my life, and it still is. I engaged in exploring languages and cultures and being amazed at things I had not seen before. And I think the key to all of our expanding life for what life is available to us is the fact that fearlessly you have to take on new challenges and not see them as challenges, but see them as experiences.
Okay.
Because we give this kind of people have this tendency to think that things that are new are hard because they don't know anything about it. But just exploring and observing and being patient with yourself, you can accomplish a lot in life as a human being. First of all, if we take the titles away from what we do, like artist, musician, writer, we're all capable of doing any of those things. But
Wow,
the
I
thing,
agree.
but the things that I sort of like manipulated were the curiosities of life for me. If I saw and right now I'm a gadget person. I like little gadgets, like little magical things that do stuff. And that's the amazement of discovery. So in my work, my work has been defined by what will happen next if I put this together, if I put these colors down and turn my head and let them marinate and do some things, what will I see? So the adventure about creativity, the creativity is about expanding. And I teach a course at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts I call Expanding Imagination, Expanding Your Horizons. It's always about growing and not about technique and mastering technique, because when you do that, it's like building log cabins. You build log cabins all over the countryside.
That's right.
But if you have building materials, you come up with new ideas to construct your ideas. So
Okay.
that's how I function on the canvas. I did a mural project at Church of the Advocate about 50 years ago. It sounds
Okay.
like yesterday, but it was 1973. It took 3 years with Walter Edmonds, and we did this church, 14 panels of the Old Testament. Walter did studies, beautiful studies for every one of his paintings. I did no studies at all, I like this 12-foot by 8-foot walls and this 20-foot by 30-foot wall. It was painted white on a scaffold in front of it. I took up paints up there, and I knew I was going to paint Genesis. And I know I felt that from my church experiences. I felt that from being a biblically oriented person. And
Wow.
I just,
So let me ask you a question. So is that for the most part? I heard you said the other man did research, with regards to what he was painting, and you didn't. So is that normally how you flow? You just go off of your spirit, like, ancestors whispering to you, or, it's another zone that you go in creating, or do you involve research as well?
well, the research is about what I've intrinsically absorbed from my experiences. Okay,
Okay.
and we're talking about but biblical terms. I've read Bible, and I've read Quran, and I've read Bhagavad Gita. I've read and done a lot of things that happen to do with information or making the vehicles of spirituality available to me.
Hmm.
And knowing that the verses that I was to interpret were really right in front of me. When you look at a verse and you say, what does this verse look like? I enjoyed being able to take that somewhere with my capabilities as an artist, more so than trying to describe it to someone, because I had to go to church, like I say, as a young child, every Sunday and every Wednesday night, and four weeks out of every summer for revival meetings. So religion has always been fantasy for me.
Okay.
I, I liked hearing the preachers do their thing, going. They were perform, and preachers were performers to me. And when I went to see a live performer, it was no different than seeing a preacher. James Brown is just like the preacher in town. Prince, Michael Jackson, Usher, all of that is just like a preacher delivering his message. And so, as a painter, I can articulate things about those mythological places like heaven and hell and purgatory and the hereafter and all of that stuff, as food for thought to play with, as molded into an interpretation from my point of
Okay.
view. So that was the task at hand, to paint Black people's experiences that based on the Old Testament guidelines,
Oh,
and
I
it was
love that.
evidence. And anything I
That's
do is like based on when I do music, when I sit down and play with my guitar or banjo or an instrument, I can articulate a thought with that instrument being the vehicle through which I articulate that feeling. And the tone and the style comes from the sentiment of the feeling. So it's a wonderful experience to be able to have all of this put on you and have a way to let it off.
Yeah, with that what you describe, I see you as well as other artists that connect to their creativity from a spiritual perspective as a healer. It's healing you when you're engaged, as well as when others listen or even view your pieces. It's a healing modality that you're also, bringing forth. And I feel as though that's so important for today, that, the world, how we're living it, the artists step up and be these, how I call it, cultural creatives, where they're not basically creating art for art's sake, but creating art that has a sentiment, that has a deeper meaning, that serves as a piece of legacy for future generations to have evidence of who we are as a people from your perspective as an artist. So I think that that's just really amazing. Um, Let me ask you this now. What would you say, within your work, from your perspective, provokes or incites viewers? Like, is it something iconic that you use throughout, like, or within your pieces? Like, what do you think incites them? Whether your music, anything.
Well, I think basically as a visual artist, when I'm painting, it has to involve my interest. It has to hold my interest first of all, or I put it down and I'll go to another canvas and work with something that stimulates me to continue. Um, what I want people to absorb from what comes out of me as a finished product is to be attracted to it from a distance because it impacts them that way. You know, if it stands out, if it comes off the wall, if it says, "Hey, hey, hey," I want everything I do to have that kind of sense of presence about itself that people want to get closer to it and see what's going on. But and yet, as they get closer, the perspective changes. You know, what they see from 25 feet away is the ability to notice that. And then as they're 10 feet away, they see, say, oh, wait a minute. Now it's going into something else. So it's almost like a kaleidoscope. You know, it's like things that change color, change tone, change energy. But the examination of the total piece is something that happens in stages. Even for myself, if I'm working on something that inspires me for a whole day and I don't walk away from it until the end of the day and turn the light out, when I come back the next day to turn the light on to continue, I'm not bound by what I thought I was going to do to it. I'm bound to follow it.
Okay. Wow. And where you mentioned it's like a kaleidoscope.
Mm.
I felt that when I looked at your collages, your pieces. It's one with Elijah Muhammad, and it's another piece that I was just like really fascinated. And even though I'm looking at it online, I'm like stretching my phone, just like, oh wow. And I wanted to ask you a question, and I'm not sure if it's the technique with regards to how you portrayed it, but is it three-dimensional? Because it's one piece, it looks like it's like a knife or something, or it looks like there's pieces protruding from it. Is it all two-dimensional, or is it mixed with 3D and 2D?
No, it's a different piece. A lot of found object pieces are involved in what I do. Like I said, I used to ramble and find things all the time. I'm what you call a dumpster diver. I don't go in the dark. I don't go in dumpsters anymore because I can't handle that. But I have boxes of found objects, things that were once new and shiny and useful and meaningful to somebody somewhere. But you know, as you notice, you'll find things that can fit into a whole new environment of things with others. That can make a lot of sense when they are regrouped.
Yeah.
And so the messages are being told through the energy of those objects that I'm putting together, and now a configuration that has a curiosity and it has a founding, and it's knitted together so that it's meaningful enough to say this has a different interpretation, not just a knife, but now it's a connector to some other things that are contributing to the total story. And
Oh wow.
there's a story behind every piece. That I mean, it is little boxes with little objects in them, uh, built on top of a collage or around a collage, and encased in some kind of framework that might not even be wood. It's all about a space junk. It's all about what does this planet consume that is unusable, and how much of this stuff is laying around that is just dying for somebody like me to come along and say, "Oh, I know what I can do with that." So it's like lost souls being reconnected with a purpose.
Wow, I love that. Thank you for sharing that because I now feel validated. I've never really dumpster dived, but I do look around and I find things, discarded trash. Like you said, it belonged to somebody and it was important to them at some point in some time. But thank you for that because some of my children said, Mommy, you're so weird. But guess what? I have one of my daughters that now she looks and finds things and like, Mommy, I saw this, isn't this cool? And like, brings me little gifts that she finds. But thank you for sharing that because that validates, me being a finder of things creatively. But yeah, thank you. I wanted to ask you now, with your pieces, you mentioned, it's a story with all of them. When I looked at those your collages, like the one with Elijah Muhammad, can you just, I don't know, just like share with me a little bit more of the story with regards to that piece?
Yeah. I can narrate that piece for you very well. It's called Mountain High, Valley Low,
Hmm.
and dot dot dot.
It's
So
mixed media, yes.
mixed media because when it's the collage involved with paint and any foreign object that's applied to that beyond, that's why it's a mixed media. Acrylic paint, collaged, and then the combination of maybe a thread or a piece of fabric or something that brings it all together. So they are
Hmm.
mixed elements, but the theme of that is you can see Elijah Muhammad coming in from the left side of that, from the right side of that canvas, looking upward, which is significant. First of all, the fact that he's about an uplift of his people and our people towards coming out of disparity and senses of darkness and towards dignity and pride of self. But onto his vestiture, you see two small hands with a needle and thread coming towards an American flag that's a part of a fragment that comes out of Aunt Jemima, who is
Okay.
down at the bottom of that painting, who is one of those kinds of iconic stereotypes that was used to sell a product and an idea, not just a product, but the idea of servitude of Black people, being in the kitchen, being the helper, and all of that. But Elijah Muhammad is looking up at a man on a bicycle who's breaking a tape as a winner of a race. And beyond that man, above him, there's Matthew Henson, the first Black man to circumvent the North Pole. So we're talking about from the depths of depravity and disregard into a medium of contributing to a source of inspiration through Elijah Muhammad's vision of being victorious and being a winner. And on top of that, there's this Black man who was a discoverer and explorer on top of the world. um, it's an inspirational piece that says there's a lesson here that comes to a fruition that says no matter how low we are in a valley, and we can ascend, and we can also have a vision of victory, not just to be in the middle ground or just to compete, but to win and excel. And victory is ours ultimately, because in our mindsets we are winners to begin with. We are suppressed and oppressed, not by choice, but by circumstance. So
Hmm.
when we look at a piece of art that has a story to it, not just colors and designs, but at the same time, there's a flowing pattern that through my work, I like to keep the atmosphere of freedom about how I compose my the composition, how I set the composition in place so
Right.
that it's never static. It can move. I can do some things from every angle where it reads well. It
Yeah.
reads well, balanced. It has a way of being within that framework that it is a beautiful kind of flower that grows out of a vase. Is out of the dirt, but is in space.
Wow, that's deep. I love that. That is so deep. You're such a deep artist. I love it. I love it. Okay. Um, Within your lifetime, and I'm pretty sure it's probably been many,
Mhm.
but like, who are your biggest influences for you as you have evolved as an artist?
Well, I didn't evolve as an artist from the influences of the people. I think it's more important to say who stabilized, who paved the road for me as a human being and as a person who could become an artist of some kind of recognized status. And there were people along the way. I looked at people with character, you know, being a little boy. I was impressed by the undertakers in my town. I was impressed by the people who went to work in the brickyards, you know, the people who worked hard, had dirt on their hands and their feet and their shoes, and lived in these big brick houses that they built from the ground and land that they owned. So I always looked at the statue of people's nobility as being the result of their integrity for life, their value systems, and what they held true to as human beings. So when I talk about people who inspired me as a creative person, my brother Ponzi, who is a couple of years older than I am, I always looked up to him as the guy who would do some things that he didn't even embrace, but he did it well, and I just picked it up. and carried the stick a little further because he could paint very well. Even as a young guy in second and third grade, he had a facility of watercolors and things. So I never felt inferior or felt like I had to prove anything. I was always there to say, hey, I could take this further. So he did a lot of the work for me. So I found a way of being able to fulfill some of the things that other people might have left behind that I saw value in. And to this day, Ponzi, he doesn't. We're not competitive at all. He's into business, and he knows math and business and figures, and I know forms and facilities with things. And
Yeah.
so we have a mutual admiration for one another's development and successes in life. Uh, Professionally, um, art saved my life when I was in the third grade, fourth grade, because I was an incorrigible youth. I was so bad they were going to send me off to a little. This was when I left my grandparents. I'll let you know. I left my grandparents, went to New York, live with my mother's sister, and so being taken from the countryside that I talked about into Queens, I was like left to explore not just the backyard, but the whole park. Not Central Park, but a place called Baisley Park, which is big. And I just got lost every day, and I just rambled around and found things to do. But at school, I was a terror. I mean, they were going to put me away, and they tried everything to settle me down and change me around. But when they put me in this class and just gave, how you give kids some paper and crayon and pencil,
Yes.
down with knuckleheads in the 10th grade. Just give out paper and crayon. But in the third grade, I was able to find something that I could relate to as something being familiar to my home life with my grandparents, because my brother and I had coloring books, and they would give us coloring books to work with, and that was familiar territory for me. And I was glad to do coloring instead of math or learning fractions or any of that stuff. And they let me do that all the time. That settled me down because they were really ready to ship me out of there to this special school because they hadn't seen a black kid acting like that before, because black kids in New York are used to going to school with white kids. And I,
Okay.
North Carolina, Dayton Colored High School, hadn't been around a white kid in my life. So it was a transitional trauma. And that art thing, being able to do art continuously, no matter what, but I didn't have to worry about the learning part because I had already learned to read uh, by being at my brother's elbows. When he started school, I started school. My grandparents made me sit down, and he was doing home. I was learning. I could read Dick and Jane when the kids was trying to learn their alphabets.
Wow, wow, I love it. I'm getting some messages from the Zoom, so I'm going to ask you a few questions. I don't want it to cut us off. Um, have you ever, do you sell your work online or through a website or online marketplace?
I'll sell it off my back if you meet me in the 30 market. Well, yeah, I do. I mean, I've sold work with a gallery called the Art Jazz Gallery in Philadelphia. They were my only gallery I've ever been associated with. Two young sisters who quit their jobs in corporate America to open a gallery, and I was one of their people in the gallery. And they sold a lot of work for me. And then the collectors who come through that gallery, and as a visual artist of reputation of exhibiting all over the place. Right now, the gallery scene is not happening for people due to a lot of things. The advent of electronics and the internet, people are selling their own work out of their own stables and houses. I do that as well. I have a website, and I also have some dear friends who are still art reps and people who represent artists in Philadelphia. I
Okay.
haven't ventured out into the New York market necessarily, but people have come into Philadelphia. My work is in many collections of people around the country. And there's a representative in my area who's been selling my work, and a couple of corporate people. So I do have that luxury of having people who admire and respect me. One guy has nothing but my work here in Philadelphia, Daryl Ford, shout out, one of my greatest friends and supporters. And so I enjoy the luxury of knowing that I have a reputation that people respect, and I'm not hard to find. I'm on Facebook and all those other things that people spend most of their life trying to find people. You don't have to look. I'm here in Philadelphia. I'm at the African American Museum as artist in residence. I have a website. They can find me.
I'm going to make sure I put it in the description here. But as we sort of sum up everything, can you just share some words of wisdom for any young new artists that are striving to reach somewhere in their life with their creativity?
Yeah, yeah. When you say young, I think it has to do with maturity of purpose in life and what life means to you. Art is a vehicle through which there's no guarantee. My father wanted me to get a job in the post office when I told him I wanted to be an artist because there was security. And I did it for like 90 days and was like out of there. And you have to believe that what you are learning to do, and I do say learning to do because a lot of people become instant overnight artists and you can't teach them. They're untrainable, they're unteachable because the ego says that I know what I'm doing. But there's what we know, what we do is only a speck of sand on the beach. There's so much to learn from life that it will enhance your abilities. But first, learn how to use the materials that you choose. I'm not going to say you have to draw perfectly what you see on an album cover or copy something that's already in physical form. I think the most beautiful art is inspired art through which you have the capabilities of demonstrating that inspiration.
Right.
So if you want to look at schools of thought, look at what has come before you, look at the schools of different periods in art history. Go through an art history book and just go through it. Don't go through it to copy, don't go through it to say I can do that. You don't have to prove you can do what somebody else has done. You want to be inspired to use materials well.
Yes.
Don't get stuck in how they're used, but know how they were intended to use. And then just go for your choice in life. Go for your favorite thing. If you want to be an oil painter, start with some acrylics, see what they do. They're water based, they'll dry real fast or they'll draw real slow. You can manipulate them at your own pace. Do a lot of drawing because that's your hand and your eye. You draw a lot, get sketchbooks, copy things that you see just for the exercise of getting your hands to do what your eyes are looking at. And then close your eyes and just draw on the paper and don't take your eyes off of what you're drawing and don't take your pencil away and just look at what you did and what you think you saw and you will get something new and beautiful. You may work from
Wow.
that for a while. So don't try to be famous because fame will find you if your flame burns bright enough to attract it.
Wow, that's powerful, powerful. I absorbed all of your words this evening, and we have like about 4 minutes left. I want to
Oh,
thank you.
oh
I
no.
I know. We're gonna have to do this again, or I'm gonna have to upgrade the Zoom or something. But if you can just do your swivel thing, show us your art pieces, I would love that.
You're looking at some things behind me, but today I said, how can I show my work without walking around trying to show this point? I want to just give you a scan. I made a contraption today that's on a swivel, and I have these two ropes like I'm riding a buggy, like on a horse. They're attached to my device, and behind me, over my shoulder, is what's the door into my room. But I'm going to scan. I've been working on landscapes coming from the south. I always had a view of the countryside and the landscape. So
Nice.
as you can see, and as Kim pointed out, the found object thing, I always worked in, like you see the corner piece, you see that piece in the corner there,
Yeah.
that's a piece of metal, and there's a mouse coming out of a piece of a muffler. It's called The Rat That Bit My Sister Nell While Those Folks Are on the Moon. You know where that comes from. Gil
Okay.
Scott Heron. And then in my old people's situation, Uncle Tink was my grandmother's cousin who was blind, and he made cane chairs. North Carolina paid blind people to make those cane chairs, the straw chairs that they sit out in. And around here, I like to keep my little compartments together. I have so much stuff. This is part of my little junk boxes of cigar boxes.
Treasures, not junk, treasures.
Yeah, stuff that I need and don't need. And this is one of my hand painted shirts that I've been marketing since 1971,
Okay.
called Watson Wear. And next year I'll be coming out with a banner year of new products, vests, hand painted vests, and that's my. There's a collage that's behind my gatekeeper. That's one of my gatekeepers there, one of my clones. And
Nice.
that piece above that head is a dedication to one of my uncles who was killed in World War II.
Okay.
Uh, and it's called The Known Soldier, not the Unknown Soldier.
Wow.
So,
Awesome.
and then I have pieces that you'll see next year, God willing, that we will go back into business at the African American Museum. I'm scheduled for a retrospective show in September. And we'll definitely be on this program again shortly
Yes.
before, so we can talk about a lot more beautiful, exciting things. I'll have music coming out, and next time we do that, Kim, I will send you some music. And I still play guitar and write, and I have a couple of books I'm illustrating now. And I've been in several films in my life. Beyond the Emmy
Nice.
that I do, the Emmy was about a group effort to desegregate Girard College, and we did win an Emmy in 2016 and 2017 for it was the best documentary Mid Atlantic Division on civil rights, and it's called
Nice.
Cecil's People, the Freedom Fighters. You can go on YouTube. Everybody in the world can see it. It's right there on YouTube.
Okay, I'm going to put that in the description as well. Wow, this has been so fulfilling for me, so exciting. And I just want to thank you, Richard J. Watson, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me on Black Creators on the Rise, Dr. Kim D. Harris. And we're going to have to we're going to have to touch base with him again because he's got a lot of interesting things going on. And I love it. I love it. I love it.
And I apologize to people I sent the link to. We both do, but as we're old people trying to get some technology together. But I promise you, it's going to be well worth your while. Each time we come together, some new and exciting information to share with you, Kim, and the rest of my friends and people out